So to start doing weight painting, of course we need to be posing the character and looking at possible problems. And I'm gonna start with the um, FK arm just to see it. Um, and the main issue usually is on character's armpit. It's a big limitation, and although in Cecil is not as bad, you see a little bit of a problem going there. You would want to the body to stay, as much as possible, and not being pushed in or pushed out when the arm goes up. So the best alternative here, of course, doing weight painting, and I'm gonna start by just trying to fix the armpit. And of course I'm gonna have to go into my skin weight paint skin weight tool. I'm gonna open it up and I'm gonna just change the size of my tool. And here I see multiple joints. Of course I have the clavicule influencing that, I have the shoulder influencing that, and the shoulder right now is the one that is having influence, generating influence under that armpit, and is pushing in right now. It's a little too high, so I'm going to try to do is I'm going to replace the value that the shoulder is applying on this area by trying to reduce it. So I am going to try to generate a number that is a little bit less intense in terms of influence. So I'm going to start bringing it, going to using the replace, and of course, when I replace the value here, that means that that influence is going to be assigned to some of the other joints nearby. So I'm going to put a value. I'm going to say 0.5 or 0.6 might be a good number to start testing it out to and see how that works out. So I'm going to start just pushing that, and the 0.6 I see once I click it's a little too far. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to say maybe 0.3, and then I'm going to start seeing that it's pushing a little too hard still. So I'm going to undo that, and actually I'm going to say 0.1, and so and then I'm getting it out. So you see the value that is being replaced. Yes, I wanted to have some influence, but I don't want it to be completely erased, because still the geometry is going to have to do a little bit of a deformation when the arm comes down. I can go back and then say, for example, the value for this one I want to say 0.05. I'm going to change the size of my tool, and we want to paint a little bit more under the armpit here. So I'm just changing or replacing the amount of influence the shoulder applies on those specific vertices. Because I know that the clavicule will have big influence on it, and the collarbone is going to have some influence there, although I'm going to have to modify some of that later. And the sternum has probably the biggest influence, which is what I wanted to do. Okay, so I'm going to now test out. It's not perfect, but a little bit better. I'm going to test out the rotation on the opposite number just to see how that influences there. And yeah, it is a little bit too much still. So I try to just change the influence a little bit more here, see if I can do some more of it there. When I have done, let's see, we'll put it back to 0. So I'm going to just start rotating manually here. There's a little bit of influence that happens up here that I would like it to correct if possible. And I'm going to do a little bit of weight painting there. And again, I want the shoulder not to have so much influence on this area. So I'm going to try to reduce some of that influence, just replacing it, and that will be assigned to the joints nearby. number here under the armpit, just to allow deformation, but not as critical as it is right now. So that would give me a more proper deformation without having it wrinkling. I'm gonna test it out looking forward. It's not too bad. There are some little things that you'll see that we cannot control with weight painting, but we're gonna solve them later on and not using other means. So I am going to now take a peek at what the leg and the hip are doing to that deformation of the hip area. And with sizzle is not critically bad, but there are some things that I would try to soften. So here there is a key point of what we talked about in earlier processes, when we said we want that edge of what we call the underwear line, if you want to call it, because it is that line that allows you to have the separation between the leg and the body without having much wrinkling. And here, of course, I'm going to just do some weight painting, finding his left hip. I have some gems without the names there. I have to verify what those are. So here is the left hip, providing some influence there. And I'm going to, the hip is providing a lot of influence up here that I might not want. And I'm going to start by just increasing my brush here, trying to minimize some of the influence that is applying to the upper part of the body. And I'm going to just undo that. I'm going to just change my value here to say 0.5, and then try to just change it. I wanted to have little influence there, but nothing that is too large, because that will deform it too much. I'll just bring down this one a little bit here. I'm just clicking a little there for a little bit there. There we go. And then I'm going to replace the influence of this area. And again, it'll try to go to the closest joint. So I'm going to say, for example, I'm going to start with a 0.1 here and see how I can manipulate some of it here. This guy goes forward a little bit, which is okay. This one will be a little bit farther back. So that generates a softer transition there. And there is some wrinkling going on there, but it's not too bad. And I can try to soften it a little bit more. But to me, the fact that it wrinkles like that could be a positive. It depends on the model, really. If you want something that is more dramatic, like for example here, if I were to go that way, he's a little too, the influence is not enough. So I may have to go back and do a little bit of extra correction to the weight paint in that area, where I will probably better allow to replace the values on this part of the belly with a smaller number, just to allow the belly to be a little bit less controlled by the hip. I'm working on the hip joint still. Okay, so I guess this guy is pushing actually the opposite. So actually, I'm gonna actually want to go the opposite way, because I wanted to actually push up. So I'm gonna replace actually with 0.2, so I can start bringing these guys up. I'm gonna do that. This one shouldn't be doing this. Okay, I'm gonna try to do it from the inside. See if I can see geometry from the inside. And I'm seeing two things there, but trying to generate a little bit the division there. Okay, I'll correct the lower part of the leg in a minute, but I'm going to just increase the influence on this guy here, 0.3. I'm going to change my tool so I can replace some of these guys and bring them back up a little bit more. If you have a hard time finding them, it's because the version 1 of your geometry is being pushed to other places. So you want to try to do that in version 1 to see it better there. I'm going to increase the number of influence on this one here, seeing that I'm not doing enough. Sometimes it gets too complicated to do it or to see it. Just a good idea to try to find the best angle or isolate. Let's see if I'm going to give it a try here from this angle. There you go. A little bit more of a good angle for it to work. I'm going to increase a little bit more of the influence in that area. 0.6. See if I can bring this guy back up. There you go. So a little bit more there. I'm going to hit 3 one more time so I can see it. Maybe 0.7 for that one. 0.8 actually. Maybe just push it up a tiny bit more. And of course I went a little too far with that one now. But I'm going to have to go back down and do 0.3 in this area here. See if that makes a difference. Maybe too far. 0.5. So you'll work your way around it, trying to generate the best transition possible. And remember, the values are being attached to. We need some more to be some more 0.7. And we can try to soften some of it. Right now it feels a little it's a little bit softer, but I'm going to actually try to use a little bit smooth, just to generate some transition that makes it a little bit more organic looking, not so dramatic. Let me try to go a little bit more replace on this side here. Just bring it down a tiny bit. I think I went a little too far with it earlier today in the video here. That was a little too far. I'm gonna just go in smooth one more time. Yeah. There we go. So it's just a matter of fine tuning the best possible way to you to deform. There's a little bit of the influence that will need to happen here on the lower part of the leg, that will need to be painted, because I want this lower part to be receiving some more influence from the hip, so that the leg stays more as it is, as it needs to be. Too far on that guy. I'm going to bring down the influence on this guy to 0.5. See if I can just correct a little bit there, and then a little bit more smoothing again, just to generate a softer transition there. So it's not too bad. The leg let's see what the leg is doing. We'll just double check on the weight painting for the other joints. I have the knee receiving applying some influence above the knee, which is not a good idea. So I'm actually going to do some weight painting on this area. I'm going to be adding actually down here, say 0.1 on this row here, so that the thigh part of the leg has more influence from the hip and not from the knee. And that way it'll keep the form for as much as possible. Same I'm gonna do with the knee. You know, this guy still can have a little bit more here. I'm gonna just change my value one more time. Put actually 0.1 should be fine. Let me see if I can add a little more influence of the hip on the geometry prior to the knee, on the hip joint. That way the leg stays closer to what it needs to be. Alright, now if I work on the knee, yeah, the knee still has some influence there, so I'm going to just go back to the hip and paint some more here. And the knees are getting a little too much influence down there, so let me see how the foot deforms. Sometimes it's okay. In this case, I see how the foot deforms up on the leg a little too much. So it's okay to deform it, but not so far down. So I'm gonna just try to look at the ankle and how the ankles, you see, they're providing too much influence on the knee joint. So I'm gonna actually just do some extra painting of the knee so that the ankle doesn't influence it too much. There we go. So it's an interactive work. It's fine to have some of it here because we need the knee to push up the leg a little bit. And I'm gonna go the ankle. The ankle is still offering influence on the knee joint. I'm gonna just try to add a little bit more here. And now I'm gonna test the foot. Seems to be okay. The toe and the roll. So for now, I am going to bring everything back to its place. He seems to be fine. At least I have to double check his fingers, but first I'm going to do a initial mirroring so I can see how the interaction happens between the two of them. Let me just save an increment and save at this point. So I'm going to mirror the weights from the positive X to negative X. So I'm going to just go into the mirror skin weights. I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to use, in this case, my model was built where the Z and the Y are the middle axes. So Y and Z are, and I'm going to go positive to negative, of course, values from here, from the right, going to the negative side. And the rest of it, I'm going to just keep it the way it is. I'm going to just apply. And that should have done the mirroring. So if I go and test out this arm, I'll make sure that you have it on FK. And now I'm going to try to rotate it here. So I see how the influence under the body seems to be working fine. And the hip although it's not perfect. I mean, needs some extra work to be done on the back, but it's pretty much doing the same as the other one, I believe. Yeah, I just need to do some extra painting on his butt. All this area that feels a little too flat right now. It needs a little more smoothing going on there. The rest, pretty much the rest of it is pretty much work of cleaning up and having some influence to be improved and perfected. So I'm gonna just let you to work on it on your own to solve your own influences.